Story 1. 666. Malicious Compliance. Posted by you, ambitious_exam_3858. 3 days ago. No outgoing calls. Take responsibility. Please. SOC. A few years ago. I used to work at a doctor's office. My job would consist of sitting in a private room with 2 or 3 others and man the phones. Incoming calls. Outgoing calls. Appointment reminders. Medication refills. Doctor referrals. You name it. Our panel of doctors tended to be very spoiled and demanded a lot from us on the phones. One of our jobs was to call every single patient, 100 plus, that was scheduled the next day to ensure they were coming, and to fill any gaps in their schedule. If a patient didn't show or if a spot wasn't filled, the doctors would come yell at us for not doing our jobs, despite this not being something we could control anyway. One day, we were short-staffed, leaving only me and one coworker to man the phones. We decided that one would take calls, and one would make these outgoing calls that the doctors demanded happen daily. No matter what. If the phone queue got too long, we'd both jump on incoming calls for a bit and we'd switch roles every few hours. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. About noon, our boss showed up and said that we shouldn't be making any outgoing calls since we were short-staffed. We explained that the doctors demanded these calls happen, and we explained our system that was getting us by. No go. We were told no more outgoing calls today. Period. Nice. My coworker and I enjoyed a slower afternoon. Even when incoming calls were scarce, we didn't make outbound calls. The next day, some patients didn't arrive and some slots were not filled at all. The doctors were furious and burst into our room demanding why we didn't make the calls like we were supposed to. We explained that the boss had explicitly told us no outgoing calls. The rest of the day, the boss had fuming doctors and nurses lining up at their office to complain about what had happened. We could hear it all through the wall. Hours of complaining on top of not being able to do their own work. My coworker and I just sat back and laughed. Edit. I figured out the format and how to put in paragraphs. Sorry about that. 73 comments. Award. Share. Save. If you are enjoying this video, like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Story 2. $4. 0K. Malicious Compliance. Posted by you, Borta. 4 days ago. You need to think long and hard about whether you want this job. Okay. Lock. Context. I work in IT in a very small area where everybody knows each other in one way or another, so networking with people is very important. I got a new job in a private school. Partly because I knew the consultant acting as hiring manager at the time, but also because he knew I had skills in Azure and its many cloud components, which was the direction he envisioned the school going. Great stuff. I can do the migration no problem, as I've gone through it twice at previous companies. I started just before the summer holidays, which were 9 weeks at this school. God damn, that sounds bliss, so I spent a bit of time getting to grips with the equipment, network, and just generally settling in. It was a small team of myself, 2 desktop guys, 1 part-time, and a consultant, manager who worked 3 part days. Usually about 10 a.m. minus 2/3 p.m. After about 3 months, the school hired a permanent manager and dropped the consultant after he had handed over all of his responsibilities. Things continued as normal. I worked away on getting the prerequisites in place while juggling some other projects like managed printing and network upgrades. Everything seemed great. Although I was being pulled away from my cloud tasks more than I'd like, but figured it was just how things were here with such a small team. Jump forward to December. My 6-month probation was due, so I asked the manager, let's call her D, when we could have a meeting to discuss how things have been and sign off on my probation. She kept putting it off with generic excuses, and it ended up happening in mid-Jan, where she absolutely destroyed me. Instead of talking to me like a reasonable human being, she held up all these microaggressions and spent over 30 meters unloading them onto me, absolutely crushing my motivation. She also said she doesn't believe the cloud is the right way to go, lol, and that I needed to be better at on-premise infrastructure and networking. I had specifically said during my interviews that networking is my weakest area and that I specialize in cloud computing. So essentially the role I am supposed to be doing has changed entirely to one that I'm not good at. She used this as a way to suggest extending my probation while she creates a new role for me that's more fitting, as I don't have the networking skills she was looking for. I was visibly upset and she left me for a minute. But just before she left, she said, "You need to think long and hard about if you want this job. Because right now you're not performing well enough to keep it." I sat there for about 20 minutes, alone in a side room near our office. Thoughts went through my head, doubting myself, worrying about losing my apartment I bought just 6 months ago if I lost this job, worrying what my family would think, and just generally how I'd deal with what I felt like was an inevitability. I'd tried my best with everything I did and she still wasn't happy. So I thought about what she said. Do I want this job? No. So that night I signed up with all the local job agencies, frequently checked job sites, and all the time I was at work, I acted like she'd helped me see my errors, and that I was working on them to prove myself to her. Actually, I hated her guts and couldn't stand being in the same room as her. I hadn't taken any of my annual leave days as I had no money after spending all my savings on my apartment, so I didn't see the point in taking time off to sit around. She nagged me about this, constantly saying I'd lose it if it wasn't taken, blah blah blah. Like I didn't already know how holidays work. Closing parenthesis. I booked a big block of 3 weeks at the end of May as we had family coming to visit. This is relevant later. About 2 months later, I booked a couple days holiday to attend an interview. Obviously I just told her I fancied a long weekend. I got the job. Not only was it more engaging and relevant to my area of expertise, but it was a tasty 7K pay rise with a bonus scheme up to 25% annually. Sweet. I come back in on Monday ready to hand my notice in, but Shush has booked a meeting with me while I was off for 10 a.m. to discuss my new role. I have my notice in an envelope and bring that to the meeting. She starts with pretty much saying you've gotten a bit better, but still not good enough for this job, so I'd like to propose I cut her off and hand her the envelope. She opens it, reads it and says, "Oh. Okay. Huh." She says, "Okay, well your notice period is a month. So your final day will be 8th of June. I counter with, "Actually, I think you'll find that while on my probation period it's actually only 2 weeks, which brings it to the 25th of May. Which is also a public holiday. As is the 24th, so my last day is actually the 23rd of May. She tries to say I'd passed probation, but I remind her of the letter I signed agreeing to the extension and that I hadn't signed any contract for this new role yet. A bit of back and forth and she finally concedes. I also remind her that I had almost the entirety of my annual leave, which has to be paid to me when I leave, as my finish date was before they were to be taken, as the school was going through a big cost-saving exercise. This would look really bad on her. She asked me to take them instead of working my notice, which I declined. I'd rather tolerate her for 8 more days and get paid for a full month's pay on top of my normal salary. She reluctantly agreed and said Shush is going to go talk to HR and let them know. On the way out of the meeting, I thanked her for helping me out in January. She looked at me confused, so I reminded her that I needed to think long and hard about whether I wanted this job, and I decided that no, I didn't, and found a much better package elsewhere. Now I have my own office complete with coffee machine and mini fridge. staff who work with me on projects, and time to work on Azure features like I'm supposed to. All while getting paid considerably more. Thanks D. P.S. She got the boot 3 months after I left. Apparently she clashed with a lot of the teaching staff with her management style. Guess I wasn't the only one who didn't get on with her. TL. Doctor, management changed at my previous workplace. New manager changed my role expectations massively and tried to demote me, while citing you need to think long and hard about whether you want this job. I left. Shafted her by taking a shorter notice than expected due to her extending my probation, and got paid out in full for my annual leave. 175 comments. Award. Share. Save. If you're enjoying this video, like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Story 3. $776. Malicious Compliance. Posted by adventurous_drag 2133. 3 days ago. I cost company $10,000 fine for delaying our outbound flight. MOC. Many years ago. I worked for one of the largest overnight package delivery services. I was efficient at my job and followed all the rules. At the time, we were focused on expanding our international business. Due to individual country customs laws, we had a handbook showing all requirements for a particular country. This made processing international non-document shipments extremely time-consuming. One particular day, pre-internet and cell phone, I'm working my regular route. My onboard computer, which gives me my work orders for pickup, starts beeping like it's malfunctioning. 2 p.m. I look at the screen, and all my work is getting reassigned. After clearing the message buffer, one stop, 1 mile away and not part of my route, pops up. It's for 125 4-foot-long rolled-up billboards going to all parts of Europe for a movie premiere. I call my dispatcher and tell her, WTH. Why did you give me a bulk stop on Mr. Laziest route? Why can't he do it? Her answer, he always refuses to work late. I tell her, send me back my route and find someone else. She said my boss told her to give it to me, not usually true, but was her standard response. I call my boss. He confirms. Mind you, I still had deliveries to finish. This bulk stop will take a minimum of 2 or 3 hours to process solo. So I tell my boss I can't do it on time on site and get back to the hub in time. He says, there is nobody else available. Do the best you can. I finish my deliveries and arrive around 3 at the location. The shipper hands me a stack of waybills and points to the pile of the rolls on the floor. I was pissed before I arrived. Now I'm fuming. I call my dispatcher requesting backup. Same response. No one is available. But I will try to get you someone. Never got the backup. I hang up and start mumbling. This is BS. So customer can't hear me. We are required to process packages at the customer location. This is necessary in case of errors or missing paperwork. Our delivery guarantees kick in as soon as we take packages off the customer location. Each of these packages is worth over $100 in shipping revenue. $15,000 approximately. QMC. So I get to work at 5 p.m. I'm not even half done. I load everything in my truck, drive back to the hub, and contact the manager on duty. I dump the entire shipment on the floor as instructed. 10 co-workers descend on the pile. Boss says I can go home. I do my closeout routine, 20 minutes. I walk past the swarm of co-workers processing the pile. The next morning, I get called into the hub manager's office. She asks what happened. I explained as I did above. She says that the client was so important that they made our plane wait an extra 30 minutes, costing us $10,000, and that she had to write me up. I responded, I followed all company policies and was instructed by my direct boss to do my best. I did just that. I don't believe it is fair to get punished for working as directed. She looks at me and says, "You're right. You can go. Just make sure there is no next time. No write-up." Edit for context. It was policy to process packages on site. However, for bulk stops, it was normally allowed to take them back unprocessed despite policy. I chose to hold the cargo. This was after years of getting forced to do work that Mr. Lazius refused to do. This was the last time they did it to me. Second edit. We were bound by Department of Transportation rules. I was approaching my hours limit, which is why I was told to leave once I returned to the hub. Violations of those rules could result in huge fines and an automatic write-up. So I complied with the strictest policy. My malice is in that I could have just loaded my truck and gone back with nothing processed. I would have still had to process the cargo but would probably have gotten help sooner with no flight delay. I knew I couldn't do it alone in 2 hours. My boss was a jackass who played favorites with Mr. Lazius. This was the last straw. I followed procedure to the point that it conflicted with more serious policies that could have gotten me fired. 42 comments. Award. Share. Save. If you're enjoying this video, like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Story 4. $978. Malicious Compliance. Posted by U. Bunderbar. 4 days ago. Extra pickles. MOC. I worked at McDonald's in the late 90s and the extra onions story reminded me of a similar happening I had but with pickles. I was working the grill one evening and an order comes through drive-through for quarter pounder with extra pickles. Standard pickles on the QP was 2, so extra was 4. That was the standard procedure at the time. I slap 4 pickles on the sandwich. Wrap it up. Slide it into the warmer. And go on to the next order. About 30 seconds later, a guy comes walking into the store carrying a sandwich and smacks it down on the counter. He is visibly angry, probably intoxicated, and says how goddamn hard is it to put extra pickles on a sandwich. The manager intercepts him from the cashier, apologizes, takes the sandwich, and asks me to make a fresh one with extra pickles. I do as I'm asked and make a fresh sandwich with 6 pickles this time. Wrap it up, slide it into the warmer, and go on to the next order. The manager hands angry man his sandwich and he immediately unwraps it. He is not satisfied. He begins ranting that we must all be mentally inept, in not so nice terms, to not understand his request for extra pickles. The manager continues to apologize and asks me to make another with lots of pickles. I again do as I'm asked, but instead of counting pickles, I take a literal handful from the dressing table and slap them on. There is now more pickle than bread or meat on this sandwich. I wrap it up and slide it into the warmer. This time I do not go on to the next order. I want to witness the result of my handiwork. So I stand peeking between the pie dispenser and warming cabinet to watch what transpires. Again, he immediately unwraps the sandwich. However, this time instead beginning another rant. His visible anger fades and he stands there in silence. The situation may have been diffused until the moment he looks up, locks eyes with me, and sees my stupid 17-year-old grinning face. He is enraged. He throws the sandwich at me and it hits the pie dispenser right next to my head. The missile explodes in a shower of pickles and everybody starts yelling. In the end, angry man got a refund, but he also got arrested and trespassed from the store. I declined any charges, but it turns out he was drunk and caught some charges for that. Edit. Too many of y'all like pickles way too much. Fun story. Edit. If you put a stack of pickles under the clamshell grill, they will squeal like old car belt for about 30 seconds. 156 comments. Award. share. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications on.